Obviously, if nobody clicks your videos, no one's going to know how good your podcast is. We change nothing about the content or the content strategy, only titles, and we sometimes doubled or like 10x'd their views.
Jake Thomas is responsible for over 100 million views by optimizing titles through psychology. He understood what makes people stop scrolling and hit play, no matter your niche.
Through his newsletter, Creator Hooks, he shares weekly updates with over 50,000 people, highlighting the top performing titles, and you can steal them for your podcast channel.
In this interview, Jake reveals his simple yet powerful title framework built on 3 click-worthy emotions.
What makes people click? Curiosity, fear, and
shows us how to create successful titles that get lots of clicks in seconds with AI, saving you lots of time.
Why this framework, episode 35 with Jake Thomas, is outdated and what to do actually to draw in viewers.
There's so much wrong with that. Doesn't mean anything. You're wasting valuable space. You're wasting the audience's time.
Let's cut to the chase. Can a title instantly increase my views?
That's a great question. Yes and no. So, it could definitely increase your views. So a quick example is I was writing titles for a real estate investing channel, and all they did was they would take clips of their CEO from other podcasts and just like kind of put them on their channel. And I think they were getting about 100 to 500 views a video. And then I came in and we were getting 500, 1,000, 5,000 views. Just by changing the title and the thumbnail text. So, we changed nothing about the content or the content strategy, only titles, and we, sometimes doubled or like 10x'd their videos or their views. So yes, it can help, but titles, there's not going to save a bad channel. You will you'll probably get more views, but you still have to have good content, because if you bring somebody in and they're like, wow, this is going to be an awesome video, and they watch it and it's terrible, they're going to bounce right away. And YouTube is going to be like, yeah, we're not going to show their videos anymore. So, but obviously if nobody clicks your videos, no one's going to know how good your podcast is or how good your videos are. So it's a kind of a necessary thing. You have to have a good title to bring somebody in.
Yeah, I always like to quote Mr. Beast. He always said, if no one clicks, no one's going to watch it. And then I always like to add, even if you have the magic formula to become a millionaire or to cure AIDS, no one's going to ever watch it.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
Jake, if you would be a new podcaster, would you think about titles before or after the episode?
100% before. So I worked at a fishing channel a couple of years ago, and it was my job to write titles for the podcast. And it was so hard because I'd listen to the whole hour-long podcast. I'd write down all right, here are the 5 most important points. And I'd try to kind of back into a good title based off of what they talked about. So if I were to start a podcast, the easier thing would be, okay, I think that these 5 or 10 titles will work. Let's ask questions that kind of answer the prompt. So when you're writing a title, you're making a promise to your audience that like, hey, this is what you're going to get in this video. So yes. if you write those questions and then you ask them during the interview, and then you talk about them, and then those will kind of tee you up for good titles because like, all right, we covered these 5 points. Here are our 5 potential titles. Here's what we can lead with, and here's what we can kind of deliver for our audience. And I think that would be a way easier way of writing titles is so like, one thing is like people love regrets. So I would be like, hey, what's your biggest regret in this? And it's like, oh, my biggest regret is this, blah, blah, blah. And then boom, like that's my title. Elon Musk's biggest regret, selling PayPal. And then it's like, you ask them that question. So it tees us up for a perfect title and then like incredible content after that.
I have to say that I had the same problem as you. With our first client, they had 7, how many they had? 16?
Yeah,
15?
I think it was 16.
16 episodes they had recorded already without any single idea about the title. So I had to go through every single episode and try to really find some ideas of titles that would match with the content. It was like a nightmare. And now we're trying to do exactly what you mentioned. We try to think about some ideas and we make we write down, we have our script, we have questions that we want to ask the guest. So we try to tailor the questions towards the title we are planning also. So this is so helpful, saves so much time. I agree 100% with you.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
You're right. It's a huge time suck. Kind of a cheat to get around this, or a cheat code to get around this, is to just write a really vague title.
Yeah.
So it might be like, what Mr. Beast wishes he knew before starting YouTube. It's like, it could be anything, right? And maybe he didn't exactly say those words, but if he's like, I learned this and this and this, it's like, he could probably say that he wishes that he knew this before he started YouTube. So that's, just kind of talking about high level benefits and fears, and just kind of hinting at some, kind of writing some open-ended or vague titles to build curiosity. That's kind of a cheat code to do that. There are some titles that you can pretty much use on anything. So like, what, Mr. Beast wishes he knew about YouTube, that could be for almost like any content about YouTube, right? So you could stick some of those on there, and just, there are frameworks that are just kind of easily applicable to so many interviews or so much content. So having a stack of those in your arsenal might be a good idea. But you're probably better off if you start off with a good idea and kind of, start off with good questions to tee up good content, to tee up good titles. I think that would be the best strategy if you can.
Yeah, I think also, like, for me personally, so I'm trying to batch around 5 titles as well for the podcast. Obviously, you don't know exactly what you're going to say, the other guest is going to say. But I think it also helps me to tailor the whole script as well, to like see where this whole conversation is, the goal basically of this interview. That's how I feel. So most podcasters use still this really outdated title framework. It's usually like episode 35 plus Jake Thomas. And then if we're lucky, we get this general topic, podcast titles. And then usually, or if it's on YouTube, you see the same stuff then repeated on the thumbnail. Why is this not working? And what makes the title truly irresistible?
So, when it comes to what makes people click your title, it's the 3 click-worthy emotions: curiosity, fear, and desire. So, like, that's if you're just thinking super high level: curiosity, fear, desire. What actually grabs people's attention and get them to click? And many podcast channels or podcasters definitely follow that old school method of, like you said, episode 34, Jake Thomas, blah blah blah. And for one, there's so much wrong with that. So episode 134, episode number, that really doesn't mean anything to anybody. It might mean something to your producer who's trying to organize your content, right? But episode 134, that will not get you to click. And when we're talking about YouTube titles, we're talking about 60 characters. So episode 134 takes up like 10-20% of that. It takes up a lot of valuable real estate that you could use to grab somebody's attention. So there's that. Also, if nobody has watched your podcast, episode 134, it's like, I'm not going to just jump in here at episode 134. I'm a little confused. I don't know what's going on. But if it's like, the secret to writing, the secret to growing your podcast, it's like, okay, boom, like that speaks to me. Everybody gets excited about that. So, so it's a waste of time, and it doesn't mean anything. You're wasting valuable space. You're wasting the audience's time. And then also, as far as name dropping your guest's title or name dropping your guest's name, it really depends on who the guest is. So if it's somebody that everybody knows, that if Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Oprah Winfrey, yes, 100% use their name. But if you look at like Diary of a CEO's podcast, they will say, doctor, or, dieting expert, or, fitness expert. Give somebody a label that's really easy to understand and positions them as authority figure. Harvard professor, or whatever your guest is, whatever makes them an authority figure, use their position instead of their name. And that'll be an easy way for everybody to easily understand, who's talking here, and it also kind of conveys authority and it conveys value, versus saying, just saying, John Smith. It's like, okay, like I have no idea who this person is.
But you got a picture on the thumbnail.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's again, you're wasting, kind of a great opportunity to grab somebody's attention and their interest and get them to click by not optimizing your title and thumbnail.
Yeah, I think also the big problem is if you look at one of the two big podcasters, for example, Joe Rogan. I think he just does this episode 2280 with Elon Musk or Donald Trump, and another one is also Lex Fridman. I think he's doing this. I think he's even just calling it Lex Fridman podcast, and then just the name of the guest. I think so. Maybe that's because people are just copying these ones. Hey, it's working for them. Why is it not working for me? Well, yeah, maybe because of the missing audience these people built over 10 years.
Yes, no, 100%. I mean, you're not playing by the same rules, once you just become a massive channel. Like Emma Chamberlain is a YouTuber, and she'll have YouTube titles like "I'm tired" or just two kind of nonsense words, and and she gets a ton of views, and it's like, all right, well, you're not Emma Chamberlain, right? None of us are Emma Chamberlain. We have to actually, convince our viewers to watch our videos. So we have to use words and kind of, persuasive thumbnails to grab their attention and get them to click. We're not, we're just not playing. Most of us are not playing by the same rules that the people with massive audiences and the people who have the skills to have built massive audiences and loyal audiences, we're just playing a different game.
Jake, in the beginning of our YouTube journey, we had the feeling that creating titles for the entertainment niche was quite easier comparing to what we have to do now, because now we have to create titles for businesses. So it's kind of harder to play with emotions, and so we kind of feel that there's still a big gap into the creativity world for podcasts when it comes to creating titles. And to help our audience, we have here two different examples that I would like to walk through with you, and how you would build these titles. So the first example I have here is, we are sales coaches, and we want to invite to our podcast an expert to help us diving into sales techniques. How would you approach this?
Always think about the audience, right? What would the audience, what would make them click? So it's like, all right, well, going back to curiosity, fear, and desire, let's talk about, all right, the one trick to close every deal. So it's like, all right, well, let's ask this expert, hey, what's your biggest trick to close every deal? And he's like, oh, actually, I always say this, before I go for the sale or ask for the sale. So maybe, all right, well, if he'll share that, it's great. It's an awesome trick. So our title might be like, the one trick to close every sale, or, I do this before every sales call, or the one thing, I do before every sales call, something like that. So, a constraint, the one thing, every or always or never, kind of, definitive words like that make a title more interesting and exciting. So, and just thinking, what does your audience want? What do they fear? What are their kind of common misconceptions? Can we just nail that right away and and get them? Oh man, that's exactly the problem I'm struggling with right now. Or wait a minute, that's not what I think is true. That's not what I've heard. If you can make the audience say that, they are way more likely to click and get excited about your content. So, and that's why we start with the title from the beginning. We think about the title first so that we can ask those questions, about the things that your audience is currently struggling with, or they really want. So that's probably how I would do it. It was just thinking, what does my audience want? Okay, let's give it to them, and then let's clearly communicate in the title that that's what this video is about.
Wonderful, love it. The second example I have is, we are podcast experts, and we want to talk about how to write better titles. And then we invite the king of titles, the title expert, Thomas Jake. How would you approach this?
I will say, for some reason, I'm the worst at writing titles for my own podcast appearances. But but I would be like, so I've been if we're going to talk about my system, is I have a list of like, my favorite titles.
Mm-hmm.
It does happen to be my paid product, but the reason that my paid product is because that's how I write titles. Is so I will look at some of my favorite titles to help kind of get the juices flowing. It's almost like a warm up for your brain, where like you see, all right, here are 20 titles that are kind of similar that I love, and then your brain starts getting in that, all right, I could do this, and I could do this, and I could do this. So reading titles that you love is kind of like it's kind of like just like a warm up for your brain. So, a couple of things might be like, I wish I knew this about YouTube 5 years ago. This new approach to YouTube will change your podcast forever. How to write titles that beat your competitors. The one thing I do before every video. The one thing I always do before publishing a podcast. I'm actually, so I'm writing I'm writing an email right now, and those were some potential subject lines.
Oh, interesting.
So I literally did this an hour ago. It's like, all right, this is actually a sales email. And so I went through Creator Hooks Pro. I was like, all right, let me, show me, I use the title generator and the database. And those are some of the ideas that I wrote. I think it's going to be a great email subject line and could be a great title for this podcast as well.
Amazing.
Another kind of side note here is that we're talking about YouTube titles, we're talking about podcasts, and I do the same thing for email subject lines. I do the same thing for kind of hooks on Twitter. Really, we're just talking about psychology, and often the same psychology works pretty much no matter what platform. There's some small differences, but just the same psychology, curiosity, fear, desire. It really works for any platform to get people's attention and to get them to click.
Awesome. Yeah, I use sometimes your framework as well on my LinkedIn posts. So next, I choose 2 of our titles, and we would love to roast them for us. Podcast growth strategy nobody's talking about in 2025.
First off, I like it a lot.
Thank you so much.
So
I am shocked. I couldn't expect this.
I like it. So, it's the end of 2024 right now.
Yes.
So using the word in 2025 is awesome. We could, so this, builds a ton of curiosity, the growth strategies that nobody's talking about. You could also say, do this to grow your podcast in 2025. That kind of opens up a loop. So I would publish it. So a couple things that you could do is you could publish it and A/B test and see, what gets more views. I do like that. You could also, it's very clear. So instead of podcast growth strategy, you could be a little bit more tangible. How to get your first 1,000 subscribers on your podcast in 2025. And that's, it could be potentially a different angle, but if that's what your audience is trying to do, does your audience have kind of like a specific goal in mind? Like, views or subscribers or whatever?
Subscribers is always the social proof, the thing that most people see the first time. And it's like, I was talking to our recent interview guest, and we were saying like, direct to see, he has 7 million subscribers and not 7 million in average views. So I think that's like still the gold metric. But at the end of everything, we are talking to business people, so most of the times they are interested in return of investment and money and revenue. Like, how can podcasting help them? Maybe the business. So maybe this is something we could tackle.
Yeah, and it's the very kind of basic one is how to make money with your podcast in 2025. How to make your first $10,000 from your podcast in 2025. If that's what they're looking for. How to get your first 10 clients from your podcast in 2025. I do love podcast growth, but also you could play around with being more tangible. All the examples I just said, and you're kind of switching it around, and and maybe that's if this title does well, maybe that's the second idea. How to get your first 5 clients from your podcast in 2025. And especially if that's what you do, it might not get that many views, but if somebody is looking to get clients from the podcast and they see that title, the odds that they are actually going to become a customer is probably way more higher. You're actually going to be getting, you're talking directly about a problem that your audience is experiencing and kind of showcasing the solution. So obviously people want views. However, business owners, what they really want is money.
Exactly.
So talking about, all right, here's how you can, here's how you'll actually make money. Here's how you'll actually get an ROI. So that would be kind of more of a desire angle. We could, take we could take a little bit more of a fear and negativity angle. You're probably not doing this on your podcast, and it's ruining your views. Or that's a super long title, but something like that. Or we could do status, how to grow your podcast faster than your competitors in 2025. Something like that would be kind of a little bit of a twist. And those are all different angles. I really like this angle. There's some desire and some curiosity, but how else can we use desire and curiosity? And usually what I'll do is I'll try to write 20 different titles, and then try to think, all right, what sounds best, what would my audience like, what would actually kind of deliver on the content, what would convert best, what would attract the right audience, and that's how I would narrow down that list of 20 titles to the one that I'm getting.
Jake, you just mentioned about the choosing 20 titles and test them, right? For how long would you test a title? Would you leave it for a week, for 2 weeks? What's the time frame?
That's a great question. So I'll start with 20 titles, and then I'll narrow down to my top 3 or 4. I will go with whichever one I'm feeling most confident in. And then if you wanted to A/B test, depends on your views. So I did A/B testing for a channel, and they would get 100, 200,000 views a day. So it's we don't need to test for that long because we're getting a lot of views. Also when I recently, or not recently, but about a year and a half ago, I started a new channel, and I was barely getting any views, so I couldn't A/B test. So I would just change a title every Saturday night. I had a Google Doc, and I was like, all right, here's my CTR, here's how many views I got last week, and here was my title. And then I would try to see, am I getting any different views? Here's my real-time views, the views I got in the last 48 hours. And I would kind of take a screenshot of the graph. Does the graph look any different, a week later? So maybe every 100 views. And that might be a little low, but, for many podcasts, that's what you get because you're a podcast or you have a small audience, which is fine. You don't need a big audience to make money. However, you kind of do need a big audience to A/B test. So that's, I would at least a couple hundred views. And, if you're not getting a couple hundred views, switch it for a week, or, switch it for a couple weeks, maybe every other month, test it. But one thing that I try not to do is I try not to change things too much and get a false positive and then be like, oh, this is why this title worked. Meanwhile, another video actually went viral on my channel, so it kind of brought everything else up. So I'm like, oh, this is what works for a title, and then I base all of my other titles on on that little change, even though that change wasn't actually the thing that drove more clicks. So I'm typically a little bit more conservative when it comes to changing titles than other people.
Awesome. Yeah, great answer though. Great technique. We will remember this. Okay, so here is our first podcast interview. Let us know what you think of this one. XvidIQ coach, why shorts hurt your podcast? And then featuring Nate Cook Nelson, just to give the SEO a little bit of the source.
Yeah, I don't know if I would drop his name in there. No offense to Nate. I don't know if everybody knows his name. So somebody might say, "Oh, I don't know who he is. I'm not going to watch it." Whereas everybody knows what vidIQ is, right? So that brings a ton of authority. No offense, Nay, but like his name doesn't bring that much authority yet. As we talked earlier about, using their position, and that's what you guys did there. So, and I understand the search volume play, or the search play. I wonder how many people are searching his name.
Not so many, to be honest.
So, so in this case, it's like, well, we're probably not going to get views from search because nobody is searching his name. So let's just totally focus on the audience and the benefit that they get from them, or they get from the from the episode, as opposed to trying to game the algorithm and get views from that way. So I would just really think, why would somebody click this, and how can I write an incredible title to kind of make somebody stop in their tracks and click on this video, and without really without trying to rank and search for his name, because most podcast guests, people aren't searching for their name, right? And also, the YouTube knows who you're interviewing, right? In the description, maybe the tags. I don't know, tags are kind of weird these days, but in your they're reading your or they have a transcript and they have the description. So if somebody searches for his name, YouTube will know, okay, this this is who you're looking for. So that's probably more important, but using his name in the content is probably more important than using his name in the title.
Okay.
And that's mostly because people probably aren't searching for most of your guest's name. Therefore, we want to try as hard as we can just to write really clickable titles.
Interesting. I think it's also helpful because then the title is shorter if you're going to leave out the name. So it makes it easier than to be clicked on browse, I assume, hey?
Yeah. It makes it easier to easily understand. And the good thing is it's front loaded, right? So vidIQ Coach, why shorts hurt your podcast. There's so much. This is a really good title. There is a possibility, if you're a podcaster, maybe you don't know that much about vidIQ, right? Because you primarily know about podcasting. So you could also just say why shorts will ruin your podcast.
Good take.
That's shortening it up. But it's like, hey, like here's like kind of the biggest thing, and or you could, maybe they don't know about shorts, right? Maybe they just have a podcast. So you might say like, this common practice will ruin your podcast channel. So then so we went to, pretty much all I'm doing is just backing it up and up and up and up and getting higher and higher levels. But like, in the end, it's like, all right, let's just talk about the audience's biggest fear. This common mistake will ruin your channel. And then, and boom. So we could, there's a bunch of different ways here. You all kind of zoomed in here with vidIQ Coach, shorts hurting your podcast, and then the guy's name. We could zoom all the way out and just say like, this mistake will ruin your channel. So that's a good kind of a helpful move to make when you're thinking about titles is, can we zoom in and talk about something specific, or can we zoom out and just talk about this mistake will ruin your channel? Just zooming in and zooming out is a great way to it's a great little brain game to think of a bunch of different title ideas, as you're writing those 20 titles to figure out what the best one is. But that being said, this is an awesome title.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Like, it's got the authority, it's got some
good student
drama with vidIQ. Yeah. I love the title a lot, but it's, a good title is, you need to have context. All right, does the audience know who vidIQ is? Does the audience think that know about shorts? Are they trying shorts? Do they think that shorts are going to make their help their podcast? So those are the questions that you need to ask yourself. Or not you, but like the audience. When you're thinking about your title, ask all those questions and really get into your audience's head. really know what they expect, what they think is great, their goals, their hopes, their dreams. If you can know all of that stuff, then writing titles that will interest them will be a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, something I learned actually regarding like packaging, like thumbnails and titles, is we always try to connect something known to unknown. So if you think about it, XvidIQ is obviously bigger than Nay, although he has 200,000 subscribers, also shorts, which we put then on the thumbnail as well. So there we try to kind of put these together to link them then to the unknown. So this is like something we always try as well.
If you like this stuff and want to know the top 5 video titles every Monday morning, Jake Thomas has his newsletter, Creator Hooks. In it, he shows how you could implement them for your channel. I highly advise you to subscribe to it. The link is below and it's completely free and saves you lots of time.
But for those who want to take it to the next level, he has his Creator Hooks Pro, which is his newsletter combined with AI. Let's walk through it quickly so you understand how it works and how it can enhance your titles to get more clicks while saving lots of time. This is not paid sponsorship, just our honest endorsement because your stuff, Jake, is just golden.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So we prepared our account quickly. We put our description there. We put the niche and the channel keywords and topics like podcast, how to podcast, and podcast strategy for now. And so I'm a big fan of the database. Actually, I know I used it before when for the free version where you always get like 5 or 4 titles, and the remix is like. I love this remix titling, so it always gives me then the stuff, regarding podcasting or something. And when it's gonna work, something I really like about sometimes like, okay, I kind of know where it's going to, but sometimes it sparks like a new idea. It's like, oh, we could go through this, we could go through there. So this is something I really, really like. Here the 40 podcast mic no one knows about. Save it to favorites. Why not? Let's do another one where it's like, this is like sparking something. So, as I said, like, I'm really liking your stuff here.
It gives you a completely different perspective. Sometimes you would never ever have such an idea. And then you see that it's like, oh my goodness, this is blowing my mind,
Have been doing this manually for a long time. I had a Google Doc and a Google Sheet, and it helped me a lot. And I was like, I bet people would like kind of a prettier, easier, automated version of this. And I think I mentioned it to you earlier. Like when I go to write titles, I use Creator Hooks Pro every single time. I am also a big fan of the database. I think that the title nerds are bigger fans of the database because we want to see it ourselves and we want to take the time to just kind of scroll through things. If you're a business owner and you want to save more time, the title generator is just like a fast way to do that. But yeah, I personally am a huge fan of the database, and I wish more people were, but most people don't have the time to do that. So, and I totally understand. So you like the remix this title feature here? So that we have a Chrome extension, which will put that feature on YouTube. So you can remix any title on YouTube. And that is free. With the paid subscription, you get unlimited remixes. You get, like 10 remixes a day on the free plan. But it's still, usually that's enough for many people, but yeah, the click triggers are just, when you're coming up with titles, it's helpful to think, all right, how can I think of all these different angles so that I can find a best title? And click triggers are almost just like, they're like mental prompts for you to think of like, oh, I could actually try this title this way or this way. So I think there's 43 there. And if you just go to like curiosity, that's one of the most powerful and most common click triggers. So if you're thinking like, all right, I know that my title needs to build curiosity. How do I actually build curiosity? If you go to the, to the title generator, you can filter on the click trigger curiosity. Not the title generator, the database. I mean both. but so you're already in the database. You're already filtered on curiosity, and now you can see there's about 600 examples of titles that use curiosity.
Oh wow.
So as you read these, you'll start to think, oh, this is actually how I build curiosity. Like this is how you tactically build curiosity in your titles. And it's the same thing with negativity and fear, and desire. How do you actually do this? By filtering on the click triggers, you can kind of train your brain to know what gets people to click and how to come up with all these different angles. And then in the FAQ, there are definitions for all the click triggers. If you don't know what they are, how do I use the database? If you
What do all
there's that, and then there you go. So boom, there's a lot of information there. In the title generator, there's a little pop-up that'll show you the definition of the click trigger after you generate titles. So we're trying to make it super easy. You don't have to select a click trigger in the database. You can just kind of leave it blank if you want, if you don't know what you want, or you can select a click trigger if you do know what you want. But yeah, the click triggers are kind of the secret to coming up with a bunch of different titles from different angles and kind of discovering the perfect title for your channel.
You just mentioned about the click triggers, and I would like to know which click triggers tend to work more for educational content or for business related content.
I have a kind of an educational and business I have an educational business channel background, so it's almost like the opposite. It's like, all right, which of these click triggers are good for entertainment? Because all of these are good for education. But curiosity, desire, and fear are great places to start. So if you're using Creator Hooks Pro, negativity is just kind of like the big fear negativity branch, and then there's tactical ways to use negativity like regret, fear, mistakes, FOMO. Those are all tactical ways to use negativity. But a couple of ones I like are timeliness. So like right now, like as the years change, or if there's a big event going on, if something's happening, dropping in the current year towards the end of the year or the beginning of the year is a great way to get people's attention, kind of let them know that this content is working right now. So timeliness, desire is a great one. Especially, if you're trying to rank in search, typically you don't see a lot of negativity in search. With YouTube, it's like a little different because, search is kind of all over the place sometimes, but nobody ever searches, podcast mistakes, right? Most people are searching how to grow your podcast, right? So in that case, you want to use, desire there. So, kind of come at things from a positive angle, but you can also, time frames are great. People love time frames because they're very tangible. So how to grow your podcast in 90 days, or how to get your first 1,000 subscribers in 90 days. That kind of gets people exciting, or gets them excited, and also, speaks to a very kind of tangible goal. It's like, all right, boom, after 90 days, this is, what I'm going for. And then finally, calling out beginners. So beginners are the biggest, hungriest group of any audience, right? They're the most eager to learn. They are the most insecure, right? So they're trying to learn really fast. So if you call them out in your titles, they're going to feel like you made that video just for them, and they're way more likely to click and get excited about your video.
Yes, this was written in your newsletter. I was reading a newsletter yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, I read that about beginners. It's really good.
A lot of people ask me, what has changed about YouTube? It's kind of the same, right? Psychology is pretty much the same for the last 10,000 years. It's not really going to change from 2 years ago. I'm reading some of my old newsletters and kind of sharing what's working for YouTube titles. A lot of the titles are still the same. Some of the content is different, what's trending, like our jump cuts and super fast pacing, that's different. Or like maybe it's slow pacing and no editing. That stuff is trending a little bit, it kind of comes and goes, but really the psychology of titles and what gets people's attention, that stuff doesn't change that much.
I would love to hear your theory on what you think about this. So we had a really tough case. It was about corporate culture. I found it really dry. So what I tried to do was I tried to go in the thumbnail for like for the problem audience, like to try to catch them all basically. And then in like, I had the example, if you neglect this, your business will fail. And then we went in the title, we went like, we tried to get more specific, more about the solutions. Like, if your team is not engaged, if your team is engaged, your customer will be happier. What do you think about my theory here? Do you think it would be good, or would you do it differently?
I would, it depends. If you have a very small audience, I would probably broaden it up a little bit. And it also depends on how do you monetize, right? If you're trying to monetize through AdSense, there's no way you're making any money. This is such a narrow audience. If you're monetizing through $10,000 a month clients, you only need 10 videos, or 10 views. Like you need 100 views of video, to get one client per video. Maybe that's not the exact conversion rate math, but yeah, you don't need that many views. So yeah, it kind of depends on how you monetize. If you really want to narrow down on, and find the exact perfect audience, that is likely to convert, then yes, go specific. If not, maybe you want to kind of back it up a little bit, and just really talk about kind of the high level, the benefit, or the problem there. So, so typically I like to zoom out a little bit and just kind of talk about benefits and problems kind of, in slightly general terms, but I mean, play with it, but you're probably going to get more views by zooming out and just talking about general problems. There is obviously the problem, the potential mistake that you wrote this great title, and then people come and watch the video and they're like, oh, this is definitely not me. That could be an issue, but at the same time, you're giving YouTube an opportunity to find out who exactly your audience is. So, and that's gonna put your channel in a good place to succeed. 5 quick rapid questions. What is your favorite podcast? Pretty general. My First Million, Alex Hormozi. Been really into Lenny's podcast recently, which is kind of like a SaaS project management podcast. That's because I'm, trying to figure out SaaS and trying to grow my SaaS. So it really depends on what I'm trying to nerd out about at the time. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm binge watching a lot of Alex Hormozi stuff too.
And what is your favorite book?
The first thing that comes to mind is maybe Russell Brunson's Expert Secrets. He talks about building a cult-like following and building an audience that will buy from you. I love that book. Read it probably 4 or 5 times, and I need to read it again. I think I tried to read it twice. I always kind of been stuck in the middle for it. I don't know why. What is the greatest advice you ever received, or you just would like to share with the audience? The thing that a couple things I think about all the time are, one, there's plenty of room at the top. When I think about, it's like, man, there's so much competition. There's so many podcasts and so many YouTube channels. I try to think, all right, there's plenty of room at the top. If I can just be the best at what I'm trying to do, I will have no competition, because no one's going to be as good as me, right? I'm going to do one very specific thing incredibly well, and that's going to help me succeed.
What are you looking for your future?
My wife is pregnant, so got another baby on the way.
She's pregnant! Oh my God!
Looking forward to that.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah, family time is obviously huge for me, and I'm super excited about our growing family. And then with work, I'm excited about literally everything in my life right now. I'm super excited about work, super excited about being a dad of 2. Work, I'm really enjoying, just going deeper and deeper and deeper into YouTube titles, and like, how can we help people write better and better titles? How can we just make it like impossible for you to fail? So, I just added 9 new click triggers after studying thousands and thousands of titles. I'm like, oh, actually, if we change that from drama to controversy, it's slightly different. And if we think about it at that slightly different way, we can actually come up with new titles and potentially better titles, because we're triggering our brain. All right, think about titles from this way. So that's the stuff that I'm super excited about work-wise.
And last but not least, who is your biggest hero?
Derek Jeter. I'm a big Yankee fan. He's my biggest hero. Work heroes. I don't know. I mean, it comes and goes with what I'm doing. Right now, I'm really trying to go hard in my business. So I'm doing a lot of, or listening to a lot of Hormozi. But, when it comes to just general heroes, Michael Jordan and Derek Jeter are my two.
You learned now how to attract a lot of more viewers, but how do you actually turn your viewers into happy customers?
We broke down our complete strategy we just gave to one of our clients. Click here because views don't pay bills, but happy clients do.